Hello and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news, broadcasting live and available on demand on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, and YouTube and Facebook if you're still into that. It's time to queer up the news. It is Thursday, December 15th, 2022. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm not Al Ferguson. I'm South Florida Gay News' John Hayden. And this evening, we bring you the news and perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ+ news, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio model of PBS and NPR, but designed for our LGBTQ+ community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 37 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
All right, well, let's begin this evening by welcoming anchor Nik Nak London. He is a music artist known for his popular song, Can't Take Me. He's the MC on Friday nights at the Escape Lounge nightclub, a legend in ballroom, and a cast member from the YouTube series The Come Up Miami, and personally, one of my favorite people to sit on a panel with. Welcome.
Thank you. And hey, guess what? You're one of my favorite people too. All right, now let's welcome anchor Bob Hentschel. Bob is an accountant with a local construction company and a member of various LGBTQ+ Disney Facebook groups. He recently joined the planning committee for My Hollywood Pride. He describes himself as a nice widow man with a house in Dania Beach, a Disney Vacation Club membership, and a self-supporting cash flow. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Nik Nak. My Hollywood Pride, Saturday and Sunday, January 28th and 29th. Join us for the Pride 100 brunch on Saturday the 28th from 11 to 1. Get your tickets on sale now at myhollywoodpride.com.
Yay.
And join us for the big event, Sunday, January 29th from 1 to 6. Get your free tickets at myhollywoodpride.com or Eventbrite. And while you're at it, look for us for Facebook and like and follow our event page.
Yeah, and I was at the brunch last year, and it was so fun, and it was such a who's who of gays, and it was just a great time. And Happening Out Television and Hotspots are proud to be a major sponsor of the event now in its second year, and it's going to be doubly as good as it was last year, and it was pretty good last year.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Let's welcome anchor DJ Nena, resident DJ for Lit Bar Wilton Manors and a military veteran from New Jersey. DJ Nena has a BM in commercial music technology and an MA in English in creative writing. She has been a local DJ and music producer for the LGBTQ community of South Florida for over 20 years. Good evening, DJ Nena.
Why, thank you, pal. Let's go ahead and welcome our anchor, Gregg Shapiro, an inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 8 books, including his latest, Fear of Muses, an entertainment journalist who celebrity interviews and music reviews, running a variety of regional LGBTQ+ and mainstream publications and websites. His movie review column, called Screensaver, can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco's Bay Area Reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and more. Good evening, Gregg.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. I think I did that right. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Thursday, December 15th, 2022, and I'd like to wish you all a happy National Wear Your Pearls Day.
Just out of curiosity, did your husband Rick give you that pearl necklace?
I gave myself a pearl necklace.
Yes, you did.
Okay, let's queer up trans rights. Cambridge Dictionary updates definition of woman to include trans women. The Cambridge Dictionary has added a second definition of woman that includes transgender individuals. The new secondary definition is written as, quote, an adult who lives and identifies as female, though they may have been said to have a different sex at birth, end quote. Cambridge is not the first dictionary to adapt its definition of woman to accommodate transgender activists. In July, Merriam-Webster's publisher added a secondary definition of female that defines the term as, quote, having a gender identity that is opposite of male, end quote. The online dictionary implied that gender is changeable and not directly connected to sex. So far, Oxford, Collins, and Macmillan online dictionaries have not added supplementary definitions of woman. Yes, and, you know, I'm happy to see the Cambridge definition. I think Merriam-Webster still falls into that binary.
Yes.
You know, it still references a binary opposite, and it's like, I'm still trying to wrap my brain around non-binary myself, other than I know it's there.
Right.
So I'm happy to see that, but it's like, yes, and.
Yeah. And once again, Oxford hasn't, proving again that Cambridge is far superior than to Oxford.
Oh, well, okay.
All right.
Well.
So my first thought was that conservative crazies would have a field day with this. I mean, it's the kind of thing that really gets them. But then I realized that their limited vocabulary and reading ability, they wouldn't have any use for a dictionary or a thesaurus, so for that matter. But also, I think it's strange in the wording that even that the dictionary uses sex, not gender. It's a gender issue. It's not a sex issue. So in the definition, it actually uses the word sex. I thought that was a little weird.
Yeah. You know, I didn't think about it till we were doing the story just now. I wonder if they have or plan to update the definition of man. Because, you know, let's remember our trans brothers.
Of course.
Well, the definition is the opposite of woman.
Right.
Did you not get it? Did you not get the memo?
I did not. I've had my notifications turned off all day.
Well, now let's queer up business. New study shows workers and consumers support pro-LGBTQ plus businesses. The Edelman Trust Barometer, a global survey conducted by public relations firm Edelman, showed that more than 51% of U.S. employees who responded from July to August said they were more likely to work for a pro-LGBTQ company, compared to 11% who said they were less likely. In another Edelman Trust Barometer survey from May, 34% of consumers said they were more likely to buy from a brand that expressed support for LGBTQ rights versus 19% who said they were less likely. GLAAD partnered with Edelman to analyze the survey data to gather LGBTQ plus specific insights. The survey responses came from 1,000 consumers and 1,000 workers in the U.S. Edelman found that the growing hostility toward LGBTQ plus people has made companies nervous to take a firm public stance with the LGBTQ plus community. Edelman Senior Vice President Lauren Grace said, quote, "We often see companies ask whether they can afford to take a stand in support of LGBTQ issues, and this data shows that for many companies, they can afford not to," end quote. So this is, you know, very interesting for me because now we are seeing, or hearing rather, a lot of more conversations about our rights. So I think that's a good thing, but then I'm also a little nervous because you have those communities that is looking at everything as what they say overkill. But I'll always stand firm that I'm happy for all of this movement, all of this noise that our community is making, and, you know, companies standing behind that, we appreciate the support. Absolutely.
Well, and this quote unquote less likely 19% can now take its business to fake Christian baker Jack Phillips's masterpiece cake shop and tacky web designer Lori Smith, both conveniently located in Colorado, in case they're wondering where they can take their business.
They are so harsh in Colorado's buzz.
Really? It should be mellow. Yes.
Now, you were, and of course it's apples to oranges as far as period and the type of job, but you were in the military.
Right.
Like even before Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Correct.
Which was considered an upgrade at the time.
Yeah.
But how has attitudes changed on like gay people in the workplace? Because obviously it wasn't welcoming in the military, but you've been in the workplace long enough to have seen some changes.
Well, you know, it depends on which workplace we're talking about, because here's the thing. When I first moved to South Florida, I used to work for American Express. And American Express revels in celebrating diversity. But I never felt the inclusivity of the LGBTQ plus motto inside of American Express. And we're talking about, you know, the location in Plantation, Florida. Wow. So this was early 2000, from 2000 to 2004. They were every month celebrating diversity, but it never included really a rainbow flag or anything like that. That never felt, and many of us were very much obviously there. You know, you could see our community clearly. But it wasn't as...
Do you think it was the plantation location specifically, or is it something corporate-wide? And was it hostility?
I think it's corporate.
Was it hostility, or was it just lack of enthusiasm?
Lack of enthusiasm.
Okay.
Definitely didn't get the hostility or anything like that, but it was just kind of like, let's just keep quiet about that.
I'm going to concur with what she said, because my company, I'm there almost 15 years, and from the get-go, or at least as of 15 years ago, they had it written into their employee manual that domestic partners, and it didn't matter, opposite sex, same sex, your domestic partner would be eligible for my company's benefits. And even with that written on paper, I never felt comfortable. And again, I work for a construction company. You know, we're the epitome of macho, allegedly.
1/5 of village people. Proud.
Yeah.
I'm in the back office. I'm not wearing hard hats. But still, I never, you know, and, you know, to be honest, well, I found out later that there was, at the time I was hired, there was another lesbian there. We've since had more people, but there may be others that I just don't know because, you know, they don't know if I am, that I'm not, you know, and that's fine because I'm all about privacy, but still, it's,
you know you're on a television show called Queer News Tonight that goes ostensibly around the world, right?
I understand.
Okay.
I understand. Nobody I know is watching it. I invite them to point and laugh all the time. But you know, I think there's just people of a certain age that, you know, because I'm timeless, shall we say, of a certain age. There are just certain people that, because of what may or may not have been done to them as a child, they're just never going to be comfortable being totally, you know, there's always going to be looking over their shoulder, you know, is that bully from grade school still following them? Because, you know, mine is still alive.
Yeah.
So,
well, at least we can see the numbers moving ostensibly in the correct direction.
Yes, I can certainly relate. Absolutely. Now, let's go ahead and queer up gay culture. Here are the trends from Pornhub study on trends and which countries watch the most porn. Pornhub has recently published their 9th year in review, a comprehensive breakdown of the year's top porn trends, which countries watch the most porn, and how major events like the World Cup influence porn consumption. It's a shame we don't have a video. According to the report, this year's top trend has been reality porn. The report reads, and I quote, "The reality category grew by a positive 169% to become one of the top 20 categories, while popularity of the amateur category has dropped slightly by a negative 19%. Our statisticians theorize that as more amateur models have become full-time performers, the quality of their videos has improved, but visitors are still seeking a real homemade porn experience, end quote. Comparatively, the transgender category grew by a positive 75% to become the 7th most popular category worldwide. Pornhub's #1 worldwide search in 2022 remained hentai, followed by very closely by Japanese. The U.S. continues to be the country with the highest daily traffic to Pornhub. Why are we not surprised by this? Followed by the U.K. Pornhub looked at how the top 20 countries reacted to events, especially the World Cup. In the match between Belgium and Canada, nearly a quarter of Belgium's users gave up porn during the match, and while Canada had only a negative 7% drop in users. Brazil and Serbia were the most evenly matched, at least when it came to the proportion of sports fans versus Pornhub fans. Both countries had a negative 40% drop in traffic while their teams played on November 23rd. Well, I don't watch the World Cup, so I was watching Pornhub the entire time.
I've seen a number
He's like,
of things.
aye.
I've seen a number of things. There's allegedly a joke coming.
Do they include hentai and or Japanese?
No, I just thought in all my days, I never thought I'd see the day where the word statisticians came up with Pornhub. It just, it's like, does the joke write itself? I mean,
yeah. I thought it was realty porn. Where like it's real estate agents that go into houses and have sex in the empty houses that they're showing. That would quickly break the top 20. I think that let's get on that.
Sure,
holidays.
Let's get off.
I watched it the other night.
Okay,
I'm just saying.
Those Property Brothers. I mean, come on, let's go.
No.
For sure.
And by the way, I don't assign who reads which stories. However, if I did, I still would have given this story to DJ Nena because, oh my gosh, when she was starting to look it over, it was like we had to like tone down the color because she was blushing so much.
Well, and as the U.S.
I look natural now.
What's your high-speed internet connection?
I don't know.
Wow.
But it's pretty up there, I can tell you that.
Well,
Let's just say that it's seamless at all times.
As the U.S. does continue to be the country with the highest daily traffic to Pornhub, I'd be interested to know if they can break it down even more, like to state by state. I'm not wondering whether Mississippi or West Virginia would be at the top of that list, And I really want to know what the stats are on Casey DeSantis's OnlyFans page. I mean, come on.
Knocking on people's doors all over the state of Florida. How much Pornhub have you watched? And would you say you watch it daily, hourly? How many minutes do you stay on, or how long does it take?
But you can skip the whole survey if they open the door and they're not wearing pants.
Oh,
just go,
that's right.
Thank you. You have answered all our questions. Yes.
3 letters, VPN. They never. That's all I'm going to say. 3 little letters, VPN.
Okay.
Now we're going to clear up the USA View. Club Q survivors testify on anti-LGBTQ plus rhetoric as hate starts with speech. In a House hearing on Wednesday, survivors of anti-LGBTQ violence and LGBTQ organizational leaders called for legislative action and highlighted the violent dangers of anti-LGBTQ rhetoric. Some witnesses called for further legislative action on gun control, while many identified the harmful role lawmakers on the local and national levels have played in amplifying anti-LGBTQ attitudes through legislation and rhetoric. James Slaw, a patron of Club Q who was shot in the arm during the gunfire, testified to the connection between anti-LGBTQ rhetoric and hate crimes. In his testimony, he said, quote, "Hate starts with speech. The hateful rhetoric you've heard from elected leaders is the direct cause of the horrific shooting at Club Q. We need elected leaders to demonstrate language that reflects love and understanding, not hate and fear," end quote. Club Q founding owner, Matthew Haynes, asked members of Congress to protect LGBTQ rights through legislation and vocal support of the community, saying, quote, "We need safe spaces like Club Q more than ever, and we need you, our leaders, to support and protect us. We are being slaughtered and dehumanized across this country and in communities that you took an oath to protect," end quote. At least 200 anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced in state legislatures in 2022, according to data compiled by the American Civil Liberties Union, and a June GLAAD study found 70% of LGBTQ Americans said discrimination toward the community has increased within the last 2 years. So if you saw those testimonies, they were really powerful, emotional, and on point. But the question remains whether what was said will actually be taken to heart, and when and if we will ever see any action taken on our behalf.
And this goes back to the earlier point I was making about the more visible we become or others are, including us. Now you can watch any show and you can see a gay character. And I believe that is what's driving the confusion within someone who may be struggling with how they identify. Unfortunately, it seems like they are resorting to violence by that. And it would make a difference, you know, if we had government officials standing behind the message that we are all one, we are all equal. But there's been so much division. You know, we see it with elections and everything that goes on politically. There's just a lot of division. And so it's giving a person who would go and shoot up a space like that the thought that they're serving justice of some sort. And I just wish that we would just get to a point. Love is the foundation. We are all equal regardless of how we look, because we all look different. We all, have different characteristics. So let's just be more accepting.
Except for me and Greg.
Well, with the exception of you two.
We can't help it.
No, hate and fear facilitate fundraising. That's what it is. Hate and fear drive fundraising. Fundraising drives people, hate and fear drives people to the polls. Hate and fear drives wedges bigger than any fence that you could ever put up between neighbors. That is what it is. The answer to everything always comes back to money. They raise money off our fear. They raise money off other people's hate. They raise money off of the violence that they can show. Look, we're outside of a drag queen story hour. Send us money so that we can spread this message and protest more libraries and make more people feel unsafe, because it's their own insecurities. I mean, we've had enough psychologists and psychiatrists on this panel to know words matter.
Yes. Yeah.
People don't come to these conclusions on their own, in their own space. It's their interactions with other like-minded people that drive the hate and drive the violence and the increasing threats of violence.
It strikes me, I'm going to be kind. The person who shot up Club Q, allegedly, he decided he was non-binary, if I remember this correctly. And I sort of have.
He said it.
He said it.
There's no background of history in his.
And that's fine, but hear me out.
Okay.
I have to wonder how many of these people are, there's that old adage of, the most homophobic guys are, doing whatever in the back alley. I have to wonder how many of these are, they're just so damaged.
They're struggling with their own issues.
I think this is beyond struggling. They're just so damaged that they just don't, pardon the expression, think straight. Or maybe,
Yeah, because of childhood. A lot of behavior starts from childhood, and what fear, to your point, was created basically by your environment that told you can't express yourself.
And speaking of expressing ourselves.
All right, let's queer up drag culture. Tennessee drag queens stand up against criminalization of drag shows. Sponsored by Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson. never mind, I'm not going to say that joke. Tennessee's SB 03 classifies drag as, quote, adult cabaret, no matter the context or style, and it would outlaw any public performance. A first offense would constitute a misdemeanor, and subsequent offenses would be charged as a Class E felony, carrying a prison sentence of up to 6 years. Tennessee native and RuPaul's Drag Race alum Eureka O'Hara said to Rolling Stone, quote, "Our intention as drag queens or queer people is not to take away from any other group of people or from families or children. It's only to help ourselves and lift ourselves up. That's our only agenda. Our goal is the same goal they have, which is to exist and thrive in a way that makes us comfortable and happy," end quote. Memphis drag queen Micah Winter pointed out that the proposed law would also ban authentic performances of Greek plays and Shakespeare where men traditionally played female roles. Winter said, quote, "I play the mother in Hairspray. This December, I'll play Mother Ginger in the Orpheum's Nutcracker, which is filled with children. If Tennessee lawmakers pass that bill, I guess I wouldn't be allowed to do that anymore. It seems so innocent on the stage at the Orpheum," end quote. And let's remember the famous drag cons of history like Milton Berle and Flip Wilson.
Yep.
Right.
It's just, it's been there for, it's been played for, maybe not rightly so, but it's been played for laughs for centuries.
Well, and he said Shakespeare,
Women's roles have
Greek
been
theater.
played by men since the beginning of time.
Right.
I mean, really.
Because apparently even men are better at being women than women are back in the day.
Well, here's the thing.
Wow.
Even in opera,
Right.
they have women's roles called trouser roles,
Yes.
where women are playing men.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What's the one that, the name escapes me at the moment, but I can see,
Phantom of the Opera?
no, not Phantom of the
Giovanni?
Opera. No, it's not, maybe.
Cats?
Okay.
No.
So, well, we covered a similar story earlier this week on this, and I have to stand by what I said then, and that is Dolly Parton, patron saint of Tennessee, really needs to talk to her people in Tennessee and set them on the right path. They'll listen to her, I have a feeling, instead of Mr. Jackie or Johnson or whatever the hell his name is. Just, ugh.
Yep, Dollywood is in like one of the reddest parts of Tennessee.
Pigeon Forge, yeah.
There is. I mean, it's like go there, get into to Dollywood,
Which
enjoy
is a safe
yourself,
space, right.
and then get back to your car and head back to Knoxville or Asheville.
Civilization,
where you're going.
yeah.
We should have a full tilt, just 100% drag queen parade at Dollywood.
Oh, that would be.
That would be so cool.
I kind of feel like every parade.
It would be a
in Dollywood is
parade of
probably
dollies coming
is
down the
already
street. I'd love
pretty,
it.
Pretty gay, yeah.
Well, now we queer up trans rights. The Patriot Barbie dresses up as a cat to humiliate trans teacher at school board meeting.
I am a cat. Meow, meow. I'm not a woman dressed as a cat. I am a cat. By show of hands, I'm curious, how many of you believe and confess that I'm a cat? Great. By show of hands, I'm curious, how many of you believe that your child or a child from this school would believe that I'm actually a cat? No one. And not only does he appear in front of the children and insist that the children, define him as a woman, but he sits on the board and he's making decisions for these children. And the point that I was trying to make as a cat was that, obviously you can't just identify as whatever you want. And you can't demand that other people identify you as whatever you want.
Well, not Lady G, but the female Lindsey Graham, the host of the podcast Patriot Barbie, dressed up as a cat and went to a school board meeting in a bizarre attempt to humiliate a transgender teacher. During the school board meeting, she said, quote, "I am a cat, meow, meow. I'm not a woman dressed as a cat, but I am a cat. By show of hands, I'm curious how many of you believe and confess that I'm a cat," end quote. Graham was interviewed on Fox News, still in her cat costume, complete with face paint and a nose ring, and said that she was upset that one of the teachers at the school is transgender And this was her way of fighting the woke agenda. She did not specify whether she actually has kids at that school or in the teacher's class, or if she just decided to harass the teacher for fun. In the Fox interview, Graham said, quote, "Not only does he appear in front of the children and insist that the children, define him as a woman, but he sits on the board and he's making decisions for these children. Obviously, you can't just identify as whatever you want. You can't demand that others identify you as whatever you want," end quote. So this was comedic. This was hilarious. It's like, what's going on in your household, ma'am, that you really felt that you needed to do this? We are in 2022. Wake up, please, and thank you. Like, why are we still doing this? And as for children, where there's a lot of regard for our children, I believe that what we keep from our children is the biggest issue. That is the reason why our kids are out here doing so much craziness. It's because what they're not allowed to do at home, and that is just be free and express themselves in a healthy environment. Wake up, ma'am.
Unfortunately, this is a case where curiosity did not kill the cat. And she's not just a cat, she's a slutty cat, okay? And this is what it sounds like. When she talks, this is what it sounds like if a cat in heat could speak, that's what her voice sounds like.
Well, I'm just going to say, leopard print is not her color. And
To be fair, leopard print is no one's right.
Clearly, you haven't been to New Jersey. We are the land of leopard and cheetah, my man.
Oh, I've been.
Wow.
And I
Come
see
on
you,
over to
and,
Jersey.
and you're wearing this hip retro MTV, not leopard print, because
Listen.
because you know better, because you were raised right.
I rep my
And-
party.
I just have one question just for the lesbian women and other women who may be watching us.
Oh boy.
Do the pussy jokes write themselves here?
Clearly. Yep.
I want to point out, go back to something she said in her quote. You can't just identify as whatever you want. Okay, she's on a technical wording. She's right. You're not identifying as what you want. You're identifying as who you are.
Right.
Correct.
And then she goes on to say, you can't demand that others identify you as whatever you want. Yes, you can. It's called demanding basic respect. You don't have to understand it to just not harass it. And that is so crucial to this whole argument around it.
Well, in language, she's using the wrong words to describe what she's talking about, and so her point is pointless.
Yes.
Well, next we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. with more than 30,000 watching every week.
Hello everyone, my name is Francia. I am an Afro-Venezuelan singer, songwriter, dancer, healing through music. You can find me on all social media platforms at Francia Canta, and you can find my album Infinita on all music streaming platforms as well. That's Francia Infinita. And Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Love you, Francia. Well, we finished tonight's queer news headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News, let's queer up politics. From LGBTQ plus news partner, LGBTQ Nation, and writer Alex Bollinger. Mary Trump explains why Ivanka is distancing herself from the Donald.
And think about how much sense that makes. I mean, Donald is definitely losing value in terms of the party and in terms of politics generally. And Ivanka and Jared are legitimately wealthy people apart from whatever Donald's doing. So they don't.
Donald Trump's lesbian niece and clinical psychologist, Mary Trump, said that her cousin and her husband, Ivanka Trump, and the always lovely Jared Kushner, are distancing themselves from Donald Trump because he is, quote, losing value. Mary Trump told MSNBC, quote, Donald is definitely losing value in terms of the party and in terms of politics generally. And Ivanka and Jared are legitimately wealthy people apart from whatever Daddy Donald Trump is doing, so they don't need him to the same degree they may have, end quote. Last month, the New York Post published an article where an unnamed source said that Ivanka Trump hated all the criticism and the threats that came with her time in the White House and was unhappy about how a lot of their friends turned their back on them. These former friends reportedly include Chelsea Clinton and Vogue editor and all-around wonderful person, Vogue editor-in-chief Anna Wintour. And you can read more of this at LGBTQnation.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up the worldview. From LGBTQ plus news partner, out traveler, and writer Donald Paget. Barbados court strikes down anti-LGBTQ plus laws. The highest court in Barbados has struck down the country's colonial-era laws that criminalized same-sex sexual relations. The Barbados High Court issued an oral ruling that declared the laws unconstitutional. A written ruling is expected from the court early next year. Barbados becomes the third Caribbean nation to overturn often inherited laws that criminalized gay sex. Kenita Placide, executive director of Eastern Caribbean Alliance for Diversity and Equality Incorporated, said, quote, "We really take this win as a stepping stone to ensuring access to justice," end quote. Find out more at outtraveler.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up gay culture. From LGBTQ plus news partner Pride. Honoring respect for marriage with the 8 most gorgeous couples celebrating marriage equality. With the signing of the Respect for Marriage Act into law, Pride has collected images of the 8 most gorgeous couples celebrating marriage equality. They collected images of happy couples from across social media, including Instagram accounts at muffins_love, at Michael and Matt, at D11Edan, at Wedding Wire, at _ the Mrs. Collection, at Celebrity Kind, at A Daniel Adventure, and at Attitude Mag. Find out more and see the photos at pride.com. And that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience, watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hot Spots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm John Hayden, and I'm the third John Hayden, and I stand on the shoulders of 2 other John Haydens who were incredibly important in my life. My grandfather, John Hayden, who made immense contributions to me, and my father, John Hayden, who is also sitting in the audience tonight. And I'm so incredibly proud to have him here and be able to see me do this. And I do. I stand on their shoulders because without them, I would have never been lifted up. I would have never had a career in broadcast, and I certainly wouldn't be here. So for that, I am grateful. And I am John Hayden. And on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Nik Nak London, Mr. Bob Hentschel, DJ Nena, and my doppelganger, Gregg Shapiro. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end the show, we have one final story, and we're going to queer up LGBTQ plus civil rights. Queer News Tonight goes behind the scenes at the White House Respect for Marriage signing. Since Tuesday, Queer News Tonight has been reporting on the historic signing of the Respect for Marriage Act by President Biden. Queer News Tonight correspondents Todd and Jeff Delmay were on hand for the historic event. Today, that's where Al is. Today, Al Ferguson sat down with Todd Delmay to discuss being at the event and the events that led up to it, and what it means for the future.
Well, we have very big news this week in the LGBTQ community, as everyone knows now. Respect for marriage has become the law of the land, signed this week by President Joe Biden. We broadcast the signing ceremony at the White House starting at 3 o'clock and stayed live all the way through it. And we want to show you a little bit about what happened. This is live breaking news from Queer News Tonight. In just moments, we are going to go to the White House for President Joe Biden's signing ceremony of the historic Respect for Marriage Act. Today, Tuesday, December 13th, 2022, may be the most important date so far in LGBTQ plus civil rights.
On June 28, 2015, the Supreme Court ruled in a historic 5-4 vote in the Obergefell versus Hodges decision to make same-sex marriages legal in the United States.
You know, in context, it's a proud moment for us here at Queer News Tonight. First off, we're broadcasting this story, which may be one of the most important in American history, codifying through the House of Representatives, through the Senate, through the conference, reconciliation between the two, and now we're watching the signing ceremony of President Joe Biden of this. First time it's codified. Very important because we have won in the courts. And over the last number of decades, we've won many cases in front of judges. And now finally, there's codification of marriage. The other thing that's interesting here as we watch these images at the White House is the anchor reporting that we are having from Todd and Jeff Delmay. I just think it's incredibly interesting that they were the context of the 2014 Florida Supreme Court case that ultimately overturned making marriage unconstitutional because it was passed in 2008 by 62% of the voters, and their case that they helped win in 2014, ultimately giving gay marriage the first week in January of 2015. Later, 6 months later, they watch the U.S. Supreme Court do it for all 50 states. And now today they're reporting for Queer News Tonight at the White House, seeing the final continuation of this process of civil rights for the LGBTQ community as it relates to marriage. I just can't imagine what's going through Todd and Jeff's mind in terms of where we are today.
And it's exciting to note that they were the ones supposed to be discussing this right now, but because they were part of that landmark case, they were actually asked to stand with the president as he signs this. So they are going to be on TV behind President Biden as he's doing the signing, then we'll be talking to them afterward.
As I said, a very exciting moment for LGBTQ, and I'm happy to welcome to Queer News Tonight Todd Delmay. Thank you for joining us. You're back. Are you still on Cloud 9?
Absolutely.
An amazing moment. This is a great opportunity as we watch this historic moment. I know we're going to talk about the ramifications and the what ifs for quite some time. We know what we face in 23 and in 24. But in terms of the celebration of this week, you arrive at the White House. Tell a great opportunity for LGBTQ that get to live this monumentous experience right along with you. And tell us what it was like. You arrive at the White House. What happens next?
Well, we had originally been invited just as part of the crowd, and there was a huge crowd there. Sort of everybody in the movement, everybody that's ever been a part of these sorts of cases was there. But all of the marriage equality plaintiffs from across the country were invited to participate in this sort of special experience of getting to the White House. And we were there a little earlier than everyone else, so that we could kind of do a rehearsal of what was going to happen for the actual ceremony, which meant that we were accessing through the West Wing, coming up into the House and being able to spend time in the residence in the lower levels, not where the president's actually living, but just kind of walking around and enjoying the space, and then coming out on those steps on the South Lawn and really kind of getting a sense of what was about to transpire. We were able to take our phones and take pictures and things while we were out there then, but then we were taken back to a holding room where we had to leave them behind because they really wanted to make sure that for that shot of the president signing it and us in the background, that everybody was paying attention and standing upright.
Well, we're showing you all kinds of pictures that both Todd Delmay and Jeff Delmay took at the ceremony. Actually, in full disclosure, as David indicated, anchoring Queer News, we were going to do the interview with you and Jeff live on the lawn. And so you get this surprise to have this additional recognition as being the plaintiff in the Florida, the Miami-Dade County case. So you can't use your phones. So we weren't able to talk to you, but you're sending us pictures before and after, which we appreciate. And we're showing many of those pictures now. So you're on the steps behind where President Biden is doing. The program begins, and you're in the White House. One of my favorite shows of all time is The West Wing. I've seen every episode at least 3 times. And you have this kind of special walk around of the White House. That must have been really incredibly special.
Yeah, we sort of had all access in some ways. And we were just able to hang out. And like I said, there were lots of marriage equality plaintiffs from other cases, many of whom we had gotten to know in 2014 and 15 when we were in DC for oral arguments at the Supreme Court. So it was just kind of this reunion and this celebratory moment that everybody's kind of back together again once more. And we're watching most of what's happening initially on the television, and then they line us up and we're about to go out, and actually when they start playing Hail to the Chief, which is when the president comes out, that's when we were also ushered out onto the steps. And you come down those steps and you really kind of get a sense of everybody that's there, and we were just, steps away from where the president was coming out himself.
We were very proud because we're showing the event live. We're broadcasting on Happening Out Television Network and our platforms and Roku and Apple, etc. We could not help but notice none of the major networks, none of the major cable cut in live. And so we're sitting there going, wait, no, this is a momentous moment. We're going to show it live. And we couldn't help first notice how joyous the crowd seemed and how big the crowd was. And then I read an AP report minutes after the signing that it was the largest crowd of 2022. What was your reaction of the energy at the White House and the crowd there for the signing?
Everybody was so excited, really. I mean, it was just this palpable energy as plaintiffs, we're all hugging and just feeling this moment. It's almost surreal, really, to think about, despite everything that we've been through, to think that when we first filed the case in 2014, that 8 years later, we would be standing with the President of the United States codifying this right. I mean, many of us grew up never thinking that we would ever be able to get married. Oh, that'll never happen in our lifetime. And to think that we've come so far. President Obama actually said it in his 2015 State of the Union address, to which we were also attendees. And he said, it used to be that same-sex marriage was used as a wedge issue. I mean, remember 2004, the Bush re-election, it was a wedge issue. And it's become the law of the land. And now to take that right, which had been won in the courts, and to actually codify it through an action by both houses of Congress and the president, I mean, it is a really significant win. And that can't be lost on us, despite knowing that the battle is never over. This is never finished. We have to continue to safeguard these rights. But to see that we've come that far that quickly, this would not have been possible without a Democratic Congress and a Democratic president.
Yeah, elections matter is what we watched
For sure.
At the signing ceremony. The other thing that I was curious about was how you were digesting the program that was done leading up to the president coming out and the remarks by the vice president and then the remarks by President Biden. One of the things I was really curious about is the symbolism of the two musical numbers that were done, Sam Smith, but especially Cyndi Lauper. She sings True Colors in a steel guitar bass, so it's more acoustic. And she wrote True Colors at the height of HIV/AIDS in the 1980s, and it has become an anthem for the LGBTQ community. And Cyndi Lauper has talked so much of how proud that the song was adopted by LGBT, of a reflection of the value of showing your true colors through the rainbow. She's singing on the lawn. That must have been an incredible moment for you to watch that and understand the significance of that moment.
Yeah, we were watching it on a big screen TV. We actually left the TV to go to the windows. And if you've ever looked out the White House windows, they're not perfectly smooth. They're very old windows and they're very thick, right? And we could see this sea of people, and there she was standing on the stage in that hot pink outfit, and taking it in that way, that perspective of her and her voice just standing in there, in the middle of this crowd. Yeah, it was a really special moment to feel that energy. And like I said, I just don't want to forget that there were so many other people around us who had been through similar experiences that we had in terms of stepping out and telling your story publicly. I mean, that's part of what won marriage equality, was this need to be able to step out of just simply making the argument and telling your story. That's how marriage was actually won, by people talking about their true colors and who they are. President Biden actually talked a lot about that in his remarks, about how, who do you love, right? That's the person that you want to marry and should be able to marry.
I thought it was also moving of how simple his concluding remarks were. He just simply said, in terms of the commitment to this, he came out for gay marriage before the president. He came out in a very controversial way as vice president without, wait, Joe rolling all over the decks. He's come out and said what he says for LGBT. But he just so simply, and in basically his last sentence, we got this done. Let's go sign this bill. I just thought the simplicity of his last words were such a good statement about what we were watching.
And there's a lot of personal connection, I think, for a lot of them. Nancy Pelosi talked about one of actually the first speech I think she gave, I think you may have
on the floor.
On the floor was for LGBTQ rights, and that this was the bookend to her historic career. President Biden talked.
It was a warm moment from us watching as we were anchoring here. It was a really warm moment among the crowd of the thanks and gratitude to Nancy Pelosi of what she has done for LGBT.
And President Biden talked even about his son, Beau, who as Attorney General had pushed for LGBTQ rights. I think it's in his heart. We oftentimes think about President Biden as being someone who's very familiar with loss and grief, but you could also say that he's very familiar with trauma, right? And being able to understand the trauma that I think Clarence Thomas's words inflicted on us, among every other thing that's been going on in recent years, but to be able to really take it very personally. And we heard from staff actually that were saying that this event was very important to him. It was important that it not just be any old signing ceremony, that anybody and everybody that was part of this should be invited. It was important to him to make sure that marriage equality couples like ourselves, that we were included in this way. And not only were we given a space to participate in it more publicly by standing on the steps behind him, but also when he came through the crowd and was able to talk to people, that there was nothing rushed about it. Like, he really took his time with every couple and every family as he went down the line.
And from my seat, to be honest with you, because Been around. I've seen dog and pony shows before. This definitely was not that. It was a situation where you could feel the intention of bringing everybody right along with this in celebration. It's one of the reasons we were very happy that you and Jeff accepted in terms of participation with Queer News Tonight, so we could bring this to South Florida and the LGBTQ community. I'm curious in terms of the impact of the day on how you think LGBT will think about this day. I've read a lot. I'm a big student of history. I have read a lot that the people that participated, especially in that first and second day of the riots in June of 1969 at Stonewall, had no real consequence of understanding of what really was happening.
Yeah.
It was so important that they didn't really pay attention to the big issues of importance. They were worried about the moment of the moment. In some instances, I kind of feel we might be watching the same thing in LGBT right now. Of this moment has come so significant. Where do you think this day that you just participated in at the White House and this signing is going to sit in the overall history of LGBT?
Well, that's a very good question, because you're right. We oftentimes don't see the real importance of a moment except through the lens of history. But I think we can put it up there certainly as one of the, sort of touchstone moments when something really significant happened. Like I said a moment ago, we would have never imagined this 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, we wouldn't have imagined this necessary 6 months ago before the overturn.
I grow up in the height of Fauci and Larry Kramer AIDS. This is an impossible day in those days. Impossible.
And yet, anything felt possible in that moment, right? It felt like all the work that had been done by countless people, not only people who were there, of course, people who couldn't be there, and that includes generations before us who fought for these kinds of rights that led to this moment.
Harvey Milk contributes in one way. He's not there, but he's there.
And actually Judith, who is Edie Windsor's widow, she was there. It was nice to see her again. We oftentimes think that, we do this little thing, right? We don't always necessarily think of ourselves as an activist. But winning these things is not pushing the boulder up the hill all at once. Sometimes it is inch by inch, moment by moment.
Sometimes it rolls backwards.
Sometimes it rolls back a little bit, but we keep leaning in and keep pushing forward. And no matter what people did, no matter how small they might think it was or will be, it ultimately leads to where we are going. Even if there are challenges down the road, this win is a win. And it's a big win.
A big win.
And it's something that cannot be taken away. The history has been made.
That's the history of it. The other thing that I think is a great story, which I want you to make mention of, is all of the cool things that happen. I know you had to fangirl or fanboy or fan they in moments of your experience at the signing of Respect for Marriage. Who was the big, oh my God?
Well, we got to meet, obviously, the president, and but first Dr. Biden came through, and that was sort of
Dr. Biden's the real star,
right? She's pretty cool, and she came through quickly, and she thanked everyone and sort of shook hands with everybody.
Michelle was always the big star.
Oh, really?
Same there. Well,
Michelle wasn't there. Barack wasn't there, but and then the vice president and her husband came through, and I have to say we had such a special moment with them as well. So my husband had been instructed by his cousin Kamala to say hello to Kamala. And of course, Jeff comes from a Jamaican family, as does Kamala. And so they had a really nice bonding moment talking about that and about their families. But most importantly, what we shared with them, which I thought was a really neat moment for us as two couples, is that we talk a lot about respect for marriage as being codifying same-sex marriage, but it also codifies interracial marriage.
That's right.
And the
Clarence
vice president,
Thomas is finally safe.
Yes, right. But the vice president and her husband obviously being an interracial couple, Jeff and I being an interracial couple. And, when I highlighted that for her, she just beamed, right? And I don't know, it's just a really nice beautiful moment that we were able to share as two couples. Actually, she started to move on after that, and she was kind of starting to talk to the couple next to us. And we got another moment with the second gentleman. He actually was supposed to be in town here to campaign for Val Demings, and was going to be at our office as part of that event, and then it canceled at the last minute. So we learned that his father had had a heart attack. That's why he didn't come. Father's well, everything's fine. But again, just the real family sense that you got from both of them. It was really
it's kind of hard to say anyone else trumps the president and the vice president, but let's try. Let's take a moment. Anybody else that was just absolute, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm having this moment?
Well, the president.
Well, besides the president and the vice president, I got it.
Right. So I want to talk about seeing the president, though, because we had been at an event with him back in, like right before the election, like not even 6 weeks ago, in Hallandale. He'd come to town, and we happened to be on the front of the line, and it all happened so quickly. We barely shook his hand and said hello, and he was moved along by Sacred Service. But yesterday, you could tell he was really making sure that he was taking the time and spending time with people. And when he got to us, and what's your name and where are you from, and we stood sort of the three of us in I'm calling it an embrace. Like we were just so close, and seeing him and just really feeling his love for this moment and wanting to know about us and what this meant to us. And, in those moments when you're just saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, and we appreciate what you've done, and him turning the tables back and saying, no, thank you, right? That is just, it's so gratifying to be able to have a president who is willing to be up close and personal and hear your story and want to know you. I just can't say enough good things about him and about that moment. And like I said, he was doing that with everyone.
I think, to be honest with you, I remarked on it when she said it. Vice President Harris said that President Biden has brought the LGBTQ community to every level of government. That is a factual statement, more than any other president in history, including President Obama. President Biden has walked the walk in terms of his support for LGBT at every level, which is the excitement you're saying. So one more time, I'll give you the opportunity beyond the president and the vice president, well, or whoever that you thought, just wow, I'm in the room with this person and I'm fanning out.
Well, Debbie, who is our congresswoman, was there too.
Debbie Wasserman.
Yes. So Debbie, she has been very good to us.
Yes, and Hollywood.
In Hollywood, and after we got married in 2015, she invited us as her guests to the State of the Union. Got to experience all that with her. So we were sort of joking. I said we've taken pictures with her, with John Lewis, and with very famous people in very famous places on the Supreme Court steps. We needed to have our White House picture as well. Yeah. But we didn't get to meet we didn't get to really meet anyone else. Yeah. But just being in the room and seeing everyone, and like I said, a lot of the people that we were sort of fanning out over were people like Evan Wolfson. Yes. People that people wouldn't necessarily know who that is, but Evan Wolfson was behind the Freedom to Marry organization. And he had actually, I don't know if you know the story, but when he was in college in Harvard, he had a paper that he decided he was going to write a paper on how to win marriage equality for same-sex couples. And it seemed like such a ridiculous idea that he had actually had trouble finding a sponsor on the faculty who would support this paper. He finally found somebody, and he wrote this paper, and it was the blueprint to how marriage equality was won. Mm-hmm. And it was basically going into every state and going and finding couples who were willing to step forward and tell their story. And that was really the crux of everything, was when people demonize somebody for being different, it's one thing to demonize that idea, that concept over there.
Making it personal.
It's another to look at somebody in their face and see them and hear their story and not see their humanity and not want to give them what they seek.
Yeah, well, it seems to me the bottom line of this is, first, it's a win. We get the win, but it gives us some warmth to get through the Christmas holidays, the embracement of LGBT, the celebration that you saw on the lawn. We all got to be able to watch the event and watch yours and Jeff's, your husband's, participation in it. Very exciting. We have to tell everybody, when I saw Todd yesterday, you had a very interesting moment for me, and you probably it didn't wash over you the way it did me. First time I saw you, you had just gotten off basically the plane
Yes.
back from Washington, and I hugged you and started going into reporter mode, asking you questions about it, and your conversation about the interaction that you and Jeff and the president had was an emotional moment for you, and I could tell. Todd ran for State House, only lost by 600 votes. It was a very tough loss. That sting is not completely gone away, I imagine. But then you have this experience, and then I watched that yesterday. And from your level of experience and participation with the Hollywood LGBTQ Council and being the ED of My Hollywood Pride and the advocacy that you do, we're going to talk next year about a lot of new things that are going on in your life. It was nice to see even the potential of old jaded Todd Del May being excited about something, and then therefore the entire LGBTQ community can be excited about what's happening.
It's been an extraordinary year.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been lots of highs and lows this year, especially when it comes to elections.
Yeah.
Both primaries and generals.
Yeah.
Lots of highs and lows. Things that you take with you, and those are sort of the things that feed you for the fight.
Yeah, that's right. I keep telling all of my friends, let's relish this moment. Let's take it to enjoy and get through the holidays. And when January starts, we're all ready to start fighting again. Todd Del May, thank you very much. We're going to talk a lot to Todd in the next month, because at the, what date? January
29th.
January 29th, Sunday, January 29th, the second My Hollywood Pride is coming, and we're going to celebrate. Of course, we've reported the news that Hollywood has a second consecutive year of being evaluated as a 100% equality city in the United States by the HRC, which is great news, and we're going to be talking a lot about My Hollywood Pride. And so, Todd Del May, congratulations. Please extend our congratulations to Jeff. And we thank you for helping us personalize this momentous moment at the White House for the signing of President Biden's signing of Respect for Marriage.
Thanks.
Thanks, Todd. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus